All right, welcome back. PortSwigger dropped a batch of labs on something called web cache deception. And I'll be straight with you, before I sat down with this, I didn't really know the topic either, so we're learning it together from zero. And I want to spend a couple of minutes up front just on the idea, because once the idea clicks, the lab kind of solves itself. Let's check out the write-up, because they lay it out really cleanly. First thing to get straight is what a web cache even is. Picture a middleman sitting between you and the website. Its whole job is to be fast. The first time someone asks for, say, a style sheet, the cache doesn't have it yet, so it goes to the real server, grabs the file, hands it to you, and quietly keeps a copy. They call that a miss. The cache missed. It had nothing stored. Now the next person who asks for that same file, the cache goes, "Oh, I've got that right here," and hands over its copy without ever bothering the real server. That's a hit. Faster for everyone, and the server does less work. Now, not everything gets cached. Caches love static stuff, the files that look the same for every single visitor and barely ever change. Style sheets, scripts, images, the things ending in .css or .js. Doesn't matter who you are, the logo is the logo. So caching those is a big win. The other kind of content is dynamic, stuff that's built fresh for you personally. Your account page, your details, anything private and per user. That should never get cached, because if the cache stored your personal page and then served it up to the next random person who came along, well, now a stranger is reading your account. Not ideal. And that right there is the whole game. Web cache deception is tricking the cache into storing one of those private, personal pages, thinking it's just a boring static file. Look at their diagram. The attacker gets a victim to open a link, the victim's private stuff lands in the cache, and then the attacker just strolls up, requests the same thing, and the cache hands it right over. The victim cached their own secrets without knowing it, and the attacker collects. That's the attack. Everything past this point is just details of how you pulled the trick off. Okay, so there's the idea. Let's go do it. The first lab we are going to do is named Exploiting Path Mapping for Web Cache Deception. So let's read the actual lab before we touch anything. This one's in the Apprentice track, so it's beginner friendly, and the goal is simple. Find the API key for a user called Carlos. We get our own login, username, Wiener, password, Peter, and it tells us what we need going in. Something about how paths get mapped to resources and spotting a mismatch and how the cache and the server read a URL. That mismatch is the crack we're going to slip through, I guess. But let's not get ahead of it. Let me access the lab. Before I click around, quick setup, because we do need Burp for this one. I've got Burp Suite running, the Community Edition, and I'm using a normal browser with Foxy Proxy switched on to push my traffic through Burp on the local proxy port. And in Burp, over in Proxy then Intercept, I've got Intercept turned off. The traffic flows straight through like normal, and Burp still logs all of it in Proxy HTTP history, which is exactly the list we'll want to dig through. So, Intercept off. That's the setup. Now let's log in. I'll click My Account, drop in Wiener and Peter, and there we go. I'm in. And look at what's sitting on my account page. It straight up shows my API key right there on screen. A long random string, unique to me. That is about as dynamic and personal as content gets. It's my secret, tied to my account, generated for me. Exactly the kind of thing that should never, ever end up in a shared cache. I also don't like to share cookies and other sweets, but with you, because I love you. And just so we're not only trusting the page, let me flip over to Burp and find that request. In Proxy HTTP history, there's the get-to/my-account. And if I look at the response, yep, the API key's in the body too. Good. Almost as good as your drunk walking skills. So the sensitive thing lives at /my-account, and it comes back in the response. One small thing I'll flag now and come back to later. If you hit /my dash account without being logged in, the server bounces you off to the login page, a redirect, a 302. Just tuck that away. It matters right at the end. Right, we know where the secret is. Now the actual technique. I'm going to send this my dash account request over to Repeater. Right-click it in the history, send to Repeater. Repeater's the tool where I take one request and just fiddle with it over and over. Edit it, hit send, read what comes back, edit again, without going back and clicking the site every time. Way faster for poking at one endpoint. Real quick ad break. When I started CyberSec, the hardest part was that everything was scattered all over the place. So I pulled it into one library, 33 modules, foundations through SOC and Blue Team. It is on my Etsy, link in the description. Now here's what we're testing. And let me set up a little mental model because this is the part I'd slow down on. We can't see the server's actual code, but there are basically two different ways a server can read a path, like /myaccount/something. One way, the old school way, it treats the path like a literal folder path on a disk. So /myaccount/something means go into the My Account folder and find a file called something. The other way, which loads of modern frameworks use, treats the path more like a pattern. It looks at /myaccount, goes, that's the account route, runs that, and honestly kind of ignores whatever you tacked on after it. Same URL, two completely different readings. Hold that thought. So let me test which one the server does. I'll take the path and just bolt a made-up segment on the end. myaccount/ABC. Means nothing, just like my feelings to my crush. I invented it. Send it. And I still get my account page back, API key and all, which tells me the server's doing the second thing. It read /my dash account, gave me my account, and completely shrugged off the ABC, just like my crush shrugged me off. It abstracts the path, as they'd put it. Good, that's half the mismatch. Now the other half, what does the cache make of that same URL? And remember from the intro, caches store static files, the .css, .js stuff. So the sneaky move is, what if I make my made-up segment look like a static file? Let me change ABC to abc.js. Now the path is myaccount/abc.js. Watch the server ignore that .js the exact same way, and watch the cache maybe not. Send it. And look at the response headers this time. There's a header, xcache, and it says miss. I miss the old Pokemon, man. Miss means what we said earlier. The cache didn't have this, so it went and fetched it fresh from the server. And there's another one, cache-control, max-age equals 30. That's the server basically saying, if anyone wants to cache this, it's good for 30 seconds. Which is interesting, right? Because this is my private account page, and it's being told it's cacheable. All right, let me recap this part, because I know you've been doing no-sense things on 4 other screens just to keep your dopamine levels somewhere above those of an empty cardboard box. So, in plain English, here's what just happened. I asked for a URL that looks like a JavaScript file, but the server didn't actually return JavaScript. It ignored the fake .js ending and returned my private account page instead, including my API key. The cache, however, appears to be judging the request by how the URL looks. It sees .js and thinks, this is probably a normal static file that I can store. The miss tells us this was the first time the cache saw this exact URL. And the 30-second max age tells us the response is allowed to stay cached for 30 seconds. We haven't fully proven that it stored the page yet, but now we know exactly how to check. So let me actually test it. If the cache stored that, then sending the exact same request again should come back from the cache, not the server. Let me hit send twice, quickly, inside that 30-second window. And x-cache now says hit. It's coming out of the cache now. And scroll down. The API key is still sitting right there in the cached copy. That's the mismatch, live, right in front of us. The server looked at /myaccount/abc.js and thought, account page, ignore the file bit. The cache looked at the same URL and thought, oh, a .js file. That's a static asset. I'll hang on to that. I also hang on to your bed frame after you went to sleep. 2 readings of one URL, and the gap between them just parked a private page in a public cache. I invented a file that has never existed, just like my will to live. Slapped a .js on the end, and the cache went, "Yep, looks like a script to me," and filed it away. It's a little bit silly when you say it out loud. Oh, stop it, you silly cutie. Okay, so I can get my own account page cached, but the lab wants Carlos's key, not mine. This is the point, ladies and gentlemen, when I give you a firm instruction to proceed with the liking, the subscribing, and the commenting. Thank you for the attention. Back to the lab. And here's the thing about this cache. It does not care who you are. It filed that page under the path /myaccount/abc.js, not under who was logged in. So if I can get Carlos to make this exact request while he's logged in, the cache stores his page with his key under whatever path he hits. Then I just go read it. So let's build that. There's an exploit server for this. I'll click Go to Exploit Server. This is a little page where I get to serve Carlos something nasty, and it even tells me right here, the victim uses Chrome. Good to know. In the body section, I'm going to put a tiny bit of JavaScript that the second Carlos's browser opens it, sends him straight to our malicious URL. A script tag, and inside it, document.location equals, then our lab URL in double quotes, ending in /my-account/ and here's the important part, a fresh name, not abc.js. I already requested abc.js myself, so that path already has my page cached under it. If I reuse it, Carlos might just get served my old copy and we learn nothing. So I'll pick a new one, say wcd.js. Fresh path, empty cache slot, waiting for Carlos. Quick word on that document.location line. That's just JavaScript for change what page this browser is on. Set it to a URL, and it yanks the browser over to that URL. So the moment Carlos loads our page, his browser bounces itself to our /my-account/wcd.js, logged in as him. So let me copy this script and paste it there. Now let me check my lab ID. It is there. Copy it. Paste it there. I change it because it has to be in the 30 seconds window, and I talked too much in the video, so had to change it because I talked more than 30 seconds after the deliver. Whoops. Also, the My Lab ID is wrong. I copied the wrong one, so go to your URL bar and copy from there. Sorry. Let me store that and then deliver exploit to victim. And that's Carlos handled. He opens our thing, his browser fires off the request, and his account page, his API key, gets tucked into the cache under /my-account/wcd.js. I check out the access log and search for a Chrome access, so I know he accessed it already, so it is stored in the cache, which means I'm good to go for it. I can see the Chrome access from there. Also check the time. It just happened, so we are in the 30 seconds window. So I just hit send, and this is the part I like. Look, I'm still logged in as Wiener. My cookie's right there in the request. It's my session. But the response coming back? Oh, that is not my API key. It's a different one. That's Carlos's key, served straight out of the cache, to me, because the cache matched the path and never once checked who was asking. X-cache says hit, of course. I'm getting Carlos's cached page. Let me grab that key, and by the way, you could paste that same URL into the browser and see the same thing, but doing it in Repeater is the cleaner habit. Partly because, remember that redirect I flagged way back at the start? A browser with no proper session can get bounced off to the login page, and then you'd swear the attack failed when it actually worked fine. Burp just shows you the raw truth, and I like it raw. So I copy Carlos's key, head back to the lab, hit Submit Solution, paste it in, and wow, there it is. Congratulations, you solved the lab. Carlos's key accepted. So let's back up and look at why that worked. Because this same shape of bug turns up in a lot of places. One URL /my-account/wcd.js got read two different ways. The server saw the account route, handed back the real private account page, and ignored the .js. The cache saw a .js on the end, decided it was a harmless static file, and stored it, private data and all. That one disagreement about how to read a path is the entire vulnerability. And the reason we could steal Carlos's specifically is that the cache key is on the path, not on the person. So we tricked Carlos into caching his own secret under a path we picked, then walked up and asked for that path, and the cache handed us his data without blinking. No blinking is kind of sus. The cache is probably on drugs. No password, no session of his, nothing. Just the right URL. That's web cache deception, and that's the lab done. Comment your fattest colleague's name. Nice work sticking through the concept at the start, because that's the bit that makes the rest of it actually make sense. See you in the next one, bud.